Hello, this is Beverly from scrapandthread.blogspot.com. Today I wanted to show you a bunch of different kinds of journals that can be used for art journaling. I've had people ask me what kinds of books they should buy, or if they want to make theirs, what kinds of materials. And really, it depends on what you're going to do with your art journal. I do a lot of different kinds of things, and so I have a lot of different kinds of materials, but let me start out by saying that if you're new to art journaling and you're more into doodling or marker work, then you have a lot more options than somebody who wants to use lots of wet stuff. So there's a number of books that are on the market. This happens to be a smash book. This is the same equivalent from Close to My Heart called My Crush. Stampin' Up! Has one. Or they did at least. And so these are really nice because they already basically have some background paper stuff going on in them. And then you can do whatever you want. So this happens to be my gratitude journal and I haven't gotten very far with it. But it's basically something that you can turn into an art journal without a lot of forethought in backgrounds and stuff. And if you're just starting out and trying to figure out what's your area that you want to proceed in, that's an option. Other options, of course, would be just some very inexpensive composition books. I got this at Target. This is one also that I ended up using for a class, an online lettering class, so it's really great for just any kind of marker work. Now some of these markers do go through, and so the person who taught the class, Joanne Sharp, suggested gluing some of the pages together, just taking a few pages and then gluing them. And then you can also do your work on another kind of media and then glue it in, which is what I did with some of these things, some of the black papers and stuff like that. So that's an inexpensive option also. Another option, which doesn't even use a journal, would be to use the same things that a person would use for pocket scrapbooking. So that could be journaling cards, and then it's also a good way to include photographs with what you want to art journal. And so what I did when I've had some leftover cards, and these are from Close to My Heart, from their, it's the equivalent of Project Life, it's their Picture My Life, and they're double-sided. And so I've used those for journaling, art journaling also. This shows you, so for instance here, it is the way that they come with different kinds of patterns and background things on there. And then I took that card, turned it, and just stamped and colored on there and put some paint, gesso around the edges. And then the back side was turned into this. Now, so it can be as complex or as simple as you want it to be. It just sort of depends on what kind of thing you're looking for. And if you don't have any Picture My Life type cards, you can certainly make your own. This is just cardstock that I took and I cut down to 4x6, and I've also made some that are 3x4, and I rounded the corners. And I like cardstock and I like the Picture My Life because it's a nice weight to it. And so it holds up pretty well to what I'm doing. I don't have a lot of liquid on these, so there is some paint on here, and there is some very wet marker, but aside from that, there isn't a lot of other stuff. But I could spray it with misters or whatever. The Project Life cards that I'd purchased before are okay, but they're a lot more flimsy, so I wouldn't put a lot of liquid media, watery type media on those. And if you really like to work in more of a liquid format and you want something that's smaller, like anything that would go in a pocket scrapbook type format, you can also just make your own little cards. This is a watercolor weight card that I made for Zentangling, and so with Zentangling it is usually a permanent marker, and sometimes I put other types of media on there, but this doesn't it doesn't have a lot of bleed, but there's some, and this is a pretty heavy weight. I want to say it's 140. But just to kind of give you an idea. And then you can use this in your art journaling either by inserting it in pockets, or you can put it in an actual journal by gluing it down or using washi tape to attach it or whatever. But there's a lot of options for working in a smaller format that you don't need it to work in a big journal if that's not your style. Sometimes books come where you can make your own cover. So I made this cover and covered the back of it and added a bunch of ribbons and stuff. And this isn't really an art journal, except I could turn it into one. Once again, I just added stuff in here that I did on other papers and then glued it in or stapled it in. So that's an option as well. This happens to be also just a regular canvas journal, canvas cover journal with regular type journaling papers, and this one I did a lot of gluing in of different pages with, I have stickers and all kinds of stuff. And as you get more and more involved in different kinds of materials, you may find that certain things work better for you than others. So this one was kind of an experiment in lots of wet stuff, and the pages, you know, looked like they had some water damage on them, and that's okay. I mean, it was a learning experience, and a lot of this stuff has been a learning experience for me. I didn't end up gluing a lot of pages together like I had with the composition book, and that's probably what I'll end up doing with most of the rest of it, because I found that I tend to do more work with things that are a little wetter. If you want to make your own journals, you can do lots of different things. This happens to be watercolor paper. It's a very thick, I think it's like 140 weight watercolor paper, and then I just punched holes in it and put the linen thread, bookbinding thread through here and tied a knot, and then I can use this for all kinds of painting or watercoloring. I also made a journal with my cinch where I took different kinds of papers, and this is actually my Copic journal to try to figure out what kinds of markers work best with what kinds of papers, and so then I have them all marked with what kind of paper it was to see whether or not I liked how it stamped or how I felt about the different markers with it. So making your own is an option with really any kind of paper, or I made this one out of fabric. And so on this one, this is denim fabric, and I did some of the work before I sewed it in, and then I added stuff afterwards. And this is still a work in progress. I'm still doing some of the background pages and adding things in as I'm going along, trying to kind of figure out what I want to do. And so these are just the backgrounds. I haven't done anything with those yet. So there, you know, really you have lots of options there. Or you can also take just a plain notebook. This happens to be just a regular 3-ring binder, a 3-ring album that's got a craft cover. This happens to be from Close to My Heart, and you can put whatever kind of papers you want in any kind of regular notebook, or make a notebook cover like I've done there. This is another one that I did with my Bind It All with different kinds of things, and I could turn that into more of an art journal. And really, you just choose what you want to stick in your books. Oh, this is my own little smash, my own homemade smash book that I made several years ago, and just use a lot of different kinds of things in here. And then that brings me to the professional ones that are sold specifically for journaling or art journaling. And I'm going to start with in the United States, a lot of people call them moleskines. I think the correct pronunciation, or the Italian pronunciation, is something like Moleskine. And but according to the company, they really don't care how people pronounce it. So they have a variety of sizes and of different kinds of journals, and they also have a variety of what kinds of paperweight is in there. So this is a small watercolor one, and obviously I haven't done anything with that yet. my larger one, and this is also sold as a watercolor one. It does take different kinds of liquid media fairly well. I found that as I was working in here, I tended to, this is all kind of practice as I'm going along, but I tended to work more with just regular inks, doing a lot of Zentangle-like type stuff, practicing drawing, trying to learn how to draw. A little bit of painting, some watercolor painting, but I found if things got really wet, then I needed to be just a little bit more careful. Either I could glue some of the pages together, or like on this one, I pre-treated it now with gesso, and so it'll take the paint maybe a little bit differently. But if you do pencil sketching, like I said, I'm trying to learn how to draw. If you do pencil sketching, then this I found was a really good type book to do that in, and then I can color it with watercolor crayons or pencils. And so I do really like those. Then there's a number of different journals that are sold by by Strathmore, and these all look very similar, but in fact they are a little bit different. So if you look at the covers, and I buy a lot of stuff online, so I don't get to touch stuff first. And if I could, then it would make it easier. But for instance, if I knew in advance how thick this was, I probably would have stuck with a lot of these because I really like the thickness. And they sell this one, it's their Best Series 400. And it'll tell you this is vellum finish and it's 140 pounds. So for me, I really like that weight. But it's personal preference. And the wetter I work in, the wetter the stuff is, like if I use sprays and spritzes, then and a lot of paint with a lot of watercolor, then that was a really good weight. This one is sold as a visual journal, and it's a 90-pound weight. And it's also pretty good. I like that this one has a little bit more of a texture to it. The first one was a little bit smooth. This one's 100-pound, and it's, this one says that it's mixed media right here, and this is Bristol with a smooth surface. And so the difference there, obviously, was the weight difference, but this is very smooth. It's sort of like a very smooth cardstock weight. And so, using the same, I'll show you some examples. This one I've started, and once again it was from a class that I had taken, another Joanne Sharp class, and you can see that I've used a variety of different kinds of media on here. And so some of it, works better than others with it. And then also from the same company, they come in all different sizes, which is really cool. So if you like to work in really big formats or really small formats, there's these available too. And I'm pretty sure I probably got these at Michael's. They do carry these in the store normally, but some of the other ones you might have to get online. I've purchased some at Joann's as well. So this one is sold as a mixed media pad. This one only has 15 pages in it. And since it is a pad, it's not going to be bound very well. And so this would be something that I would use, more for practicing and playing, or pulling the pages out and binding into my own book. And you could do that really with any of these. There's no reason to keep them in here if you don't want to. As a matter of fact, some of them are sold with little perforations. This one isn't, but some of them do have little perforated lines on them, and you can look for that if that's something that's important to you. But I happen to like the wire bound because then it is all stuck in a book, and I don't have to worry about my pages coming out, which is a consideration for this kind of book. And then this one is sold by Canson. They sell it as a mixed media book, and this one, it's listed for watercoloring, and it's listed as a 98-pound, and so it works really well. And down here it says pen and pencil. You can also use acrylics. I tend to work more in watercolor and with spray inks and things like that. So it really is, you know, I hate to say that it's personal preference and, you know, what you're looking to do, but really that is what it's all about. Looking for what kinds of things you like to work with, what kinds of effects you're looking for. This was all sprayed on spritzers with, I think, twinkling H2Os. I think it might have been dilutions, but and then different kinds of collage or assemblage type stuff works really well in there also. The heavier the materials are that you are working with, like if you're doing a lot of collage, then you're probably going to want a heavier paper. If, like I said, if you're just doing pen or pencil type work, then really your options are very vast. This is a really nice thickness of watercolor paper, and this is also by Strathmore. So you can also, if you're looking for more of a wet media type surface to work on, I would recommend trying to choose a few different things and see what your favorites are, and then you'll know where you want to kind of aim your money towards in buying things for the future. And the last thing I wanted to mention, I didn't remember to bring it down with me, but is that a lot of people like to do art journaling in their calendars, or like a Filofax, or a planner, some kind of a daily planner. And with those, you can use pretty much any kind of dry type stuff. Washi tape is really fun to work with. Any kinds of markers. Copics or other alcohol-based markers, you might need to be a little bit careful because of the bleed through. But most regular markers, like the Tombows or the Distress markers from Tim Holtz, work, you know, pretty well in those kinds of things. I like to highlight stuff with different kinds of markers and using washi tape and different kinds of things like that, funny little post-it notes or whatever. But so I use those kinds of things in my day planners to make them a little bit more interesting. So if you have any questions, please let me know. You can check out my blog at scrapandthread.blogspot.com, and I hope you have a great day. Thanks for spending some time with me. Take care.